joining us is the man who oversees one of college football's top collectives that has led the way in NIL in that space since, 2021. Walker Jones, the executive director at Ole Miss for the Grove Collective. And he's coming to us from the Manning Center, where has got the office. He's basically overseeing a lot of things that the general manager would be doing right now. Let's just add another title to the resume there, Walker.
Yeah, well, look, it's when you have a transition like this, everybody's got to fill in and, kind of all hands on deck. And,
yeah, man,
we've got a great group here. We had planned for pretty much every contingency that could come our way, starting 3 weeks ago. And, when we finally knew what was going to happen at the top, we were able to kind of implement the plan and not try to miss a beat, knowing how critical it was to not only prepare our team for a playoff run, but to also be prepared for signing day, which was last week, and roster retention, which is always, something you're working on. So, we were prepared, and yeah, we're all wearing a bunch of different hats right now, and that's kind of what you have to do when you have transition like this.
Well, I remember in the past you've told us the Grove Collective just embraced the chaos, right? Whenever NIL started, and I assume that nothing's going to top the way this regular season has ended, but I think everyone thinks of it as chaos. What's the energy like with the program, with Golding taking over, and just the college football playoff coming up?
Yeah, look, that's a great question, and to your point, we've had to embrace the chaos, and we certainly had a big dose of it the last month. Kind of being the talk of the college football universe, and the good news is we're kind of used to being on the razor's edge. With everything. So, we try to run towards it and embrace it. But the energy's been great. And, the one thing about Pete that I think is really obvious when you spend any time with him is his infectious enthusiasm for the players and the program. And we needed that. We needed a shot of energy that took the focus back to the players. And I think that was probably the biggest tragedy in all this, is that our players got caught up in this circus and having the greatest, record in school history, 11-1, and making the playoff for the first time. A lot of that got overshadowed with everything else that was going on. So I think Pete has done a great job of getting the focus back to where it should be, which is our players. And just being in the building for the last 10 days, you can feel the energy. The players have been kind of revitalized, and they've got the focus back on winning games, which is where it should be, and Pete's a big reason for that. And from the staff to all of us that are supporting them to the players, it is a good feeling to be focused on winning football games again.
But because of the way it all went down and ended with Lane Kiffin, I think it's a rare spot to be in that the SEC team playing Tulane, the American Athletic Conference team, is almost America's pick to go on a run and win this game, right? Like we've talked about it. There's sort of heroes and villains, and people make these up as they go sometimes. But I do feel like Ole Miss is in a unique position where a lot of America's interested in what's going to happen now with Pete Golding as head coach and losing your head coach in this spot. Do you guys embrace that part of this where you might have a lot of bandwagon fans rooting for Ole Miss in this playoff to spite Lane Kiffin?
Absolutely. I mean, look, I think if you look back through history, especially like the NCAA tournament, now with college football playoff, where you have to make kind of an elongated run to win a national championship, where you got to win more than one or two games. It's the teams that catch fire and that create momentum and not only play well, but they kind of consolidate the fan base and everybody that's around the program. And I think we're certainly feeling that. I know I've gotten a bunch of text messages from people all around the country that don't have a connection to Ole Miss saying, man, I'm pulling for you guys. Like I know who I'm rooting for. And, that makes you feel good, that we've kind of harnessed this kind of opportunity to create, like you said, whether they're bandwagon fans or people that just want to see us do well because of what we went through. And again, I think our fans deserve it probably more than anybody. Is the great season, and our fans really kind of got robbed of enjoying the end of the year because of what was going on. And so I'm just glad our fans are now able to focus on spending a Saturday in the Grove 5 days before Christmas and packing out our stadium, which should be the biggest and largest sporting event in our state's history. And so our fan base feels that. And again, across the country, we feel a lot of people are pulling for us. And I think you need those things to be able to make a run, and I think back to the 1989 University of Michigan basketball team that went through a similar thing with Bill Frieder leaving and Steve Fisher taking over and them going on that magical run. And again, I think we like our draw. Obviously, we got to play some really good teams. It's crazy that, the first round matchup is a rematch. And then if we're able to win, the second round matchup is another rematch. But again, I think we'll be prepared for that. And it does feel good that we've got some momentum focused in the right areas again.
You oversee one of the top collectives in the country and have since 2021. I mean, Ole Miss, we know, is going to be aggressive in the transfer portal. You guys crush it in the portal. But roster retention right now, that's where my time and effort would really be focused, I think. How difficult is it to know if players are staying or going, given the fact that their head coach went to LSU and there's all these different ties to it, that you're in the playoff and they have to be thinking one way or the other? I'm sure it's not much different than any season, but yet it is because of the craziness that took place over the last month.
Yeah, that's another great question. And, I've been doing this now. This will be my fourth portal going through, from a football standpoint. And every portal window has brought its own unique challenges, with what's happening on the landscape. This year, the portal was going to be different because of the house settlement and some of the things that came with the rev share cap and the clearinghouse and NIL Go and all that. So this portal season was already going to be a change and different than the previous ones. And like I said, they all propose their own unique challenges. But even more so now, being the first to really have to go through this, where we had a coach leave during the middle of a playoff run. There's only one portal season in football now, which is different. There used to be, the January portal and then the spring portal. The spring portal is no longer. So there's just one portal season. So because of the house settlement implementation, there's only one portal season this year for football, and the fact that we've got a regime change from a coaching out standpoint. It is truly fascinating times right now, and we're kind of figuring it out as we go. It's a little trial by error, but that's kind of the way it's always been with NIL and with the portal. And so I think, again, as you said earlier, we kind of embrace that chaos and use our creativity to work through those challenges. But, the great thing is you've got a head coach now who is hyper-focused on the players, roster retention, recruiting, the evaluation of those players. And Pete's a big reason why we have such a great team right now, because of his input in those personnel areas. So now with him being at the top, we're following his lead. We're making some adjustments on how he wants things done. And to your point, we're going to be very aggressive again, not only in retention right now, but in portal recruitment when it opens on January 2nd, just like we've always been. And I don't think that'll change. We're going to be very hyper focused on, like I said, the retention piece and then the recruitment of the portal.
I think I have my details right here. Kiffin called you directly, said he needed you as the executive director of the Grove Collective. He pitched that idea, I guess. That phone call is probably a long one. What was the final phone call like when he told you he was leaving Ole Miss for LSU? Hey, if you like the channel, become a season ticket holder for Hot Mic by clicking the subscribe button below and join the conversation in the comments section. Agree, disagree, we'll join you there in the chat. Now back to Hot Mic.
Oh, yeah. Messages and voice memos. Look, I hated the way it all went down, but I would be disingenuous for me to say that Coach Kiffin didn't leave our program in a really good spot. He won a lot of games here. He made us a national relevant brand in college athletics. So, if you can kind of compartmentalize your emotions, you want to put aside your anger or your resentment and those type things, and you want to appreciate things too. And, again, I think we have to recognize the fact that, take all that other stuff away. Coach Kiffin did create a brand. He did win a lot of games here. He elevated our job to a place that it hasn't been in a long time. And so I am grateful for those things. Yes, I hate the way things were handled. And I certainly feel he could have handled things in a much more professional manner on the way out. But, you know, these coaching changes, they're always messy. And especially when you're going to a competitor in your own conference. And they're going to be messy. And again, I just think that if your sole motivation is revenge or retribution against somebody, then it's probably not a winning formula. And our program's always been bigger than one person. And so, yeah, it was tough to see Coach go. And I've had, you know, all the range of emotions from anger to sadness to, you know, perseverance and, you know, nostalgia, thinking about the last 6 years. But, you know, I've kind of put all that stuff away now because we're just too busy to slow down and think about those things. We got to keep moving and keep going and do the best we can for Coach Golding and the staff here. And, you know, I hate the way it went down, but I'm appreciative for what he did. And look, we're moving on and we're going to be in a great spot.
That's why your answer right there, that's why there was no way in hell that he was going to coach in the playoff. You know, ESPN's trying to push that narrative that there's just the emotions and everything involved with the different corners of that. There's no way he could be doing that. And I don't understand how Saban and others we're pitching or trying to, you know, stand and stump for Kiffin on College game day. I didn't understand that at all.
Yeah, that was tough to listen to and watch, you know, knowing that any other rivalry in there, Auburn, Alabama, Ohio State, Michigan, and use whatever rival you want in there. Like let's put the shoe on the other foot and talk about if Alabama's coach was going to Auburn, if Ohio State's coach was going to Michigan. Like there's no way. And, you know, again, if he was leaving to go coach the Dolphins or the Giants or Oregon or something, you know, John Summerall going from Tulane to Florida, you know, moving up from Group of Five to Power Four, you know, but when you're talking about interconference and LSU, who is a historical bitter rival of ours, you couldn't do that. And it wouldn't be fair to our fans. It wouldn't be fair to our players. And again, I give Keith Carter and our chancellor, Glenn Boyce, a ton of credit for, you know, sticking to their guns and staying true to that. And those guys made the right call. And despite all that public pressure that you're talking about, they never wavered on that opinion. And I think it was the right thing at the end of the day.
Well, and I wanted to ask you about Keith Carter, the athletic director there at Ole Miss, because, you know, I was thinking about 1998-99 when Tommy Tuberville leaves Ole Miss for Auburn. There wasn't a second thought given to it. It was, oh, yeah, Auburn's a better job, you know, so he left for a better job and move on. You know, Lane Kiffin turned down Auburn at one point. There was debate about, do you stay at Ole Miss where you got a program and a team in the college football playoff or go to LSU? You guys spend money. LSU spends money. Everybody in college football is spending money. So how important was it for Keith Carter to, for lack of a better phrase, show some balls in this whole thing and say, yeah, we're not a stepping stone job. We're in the same conference and we're the team in the playoff. So we're not going to let you just do whatever you want in this whole deal. And how important was that, do you think, Walker, to your fan base, that he do that as well as the players and everyone else?
Oh, look, I think that was huge. And look, that's not a surprise to those of us that are around Keith. You know, Keith and I were student athletes here together. When I was playing football, he was playing basketball. Keith was a phenomenal high-level basketball player and a competitor. And you saw that in this whole situation. You know, the former athlete, the competitor, the love and passion for our school. And so, you know, those of us that are lucky enough to be around Keith on a day-to-day basis, it wasn't surprising to us, but I think it was refreshing for our fans to see that and to see him step up and hold the ground and, you know, stay firmly planted in what he believed was the right thing to do long-term for not only our football program, for our university. And so, you know, I think that kind of galvanized our fan base. And look, and that was the other thing too, is look, we wanted our people to know we're going to be okay. We're going to be okay. If he chooses to stay, great. If he leaves, hey, that's going to stink, but we're built to last. And this is not a flash in the pan that's built on one man. We have the resources and the infrastructure that can survive this transition, and we're built for success. And I think that was the biggest thing we wanted our fans to know, that, yeah, this is a big moment, but regardless of what decision was made, we're going to be prepared for it, and we're built to win from years on out. And I think, again, Keith is a huge part of that. And to your point, him staying committed to those principles and the process that we had put in place was huge for everybody in and around the program.
So I'm glad you're on, because you can tell me if I'm wrong here. I feel like this is more about how it was handled than the decision, because this is the annual coaching carousel. And this is nothing new to you. I mean, you work with Jimmy Sexton and CAA's coaching division, right, of what they do.
That's right.
How much has it changed in just a short amount of time since you've been with them? And, I mean, we've seen coaches leave. We do this all the time. Lane flirts with every job that's open. Is it more about how it was handled, and maybe just the carousel started with him and he used that and maybe told you guys he was coming back and he wasn't?
Yeah, I think that's a fair statement.
Okay.
I think, look, it has obviously evolved. The factors that coaches look at now are different than they were 5, 6, 7 years ago. It's all about roster management and NIL and rev sharing and all those things that are a part of talent acquisition and talent retention, which has kind of sucked the oxygen out of the room. And that's we're in a talent business, so that's what the coaches are really focused on, as they should be. But yeah, I think to your point, I got to a point, we've been going through this for a month, and I know myself and others got to a point that it wasn't so much anymore about the decision, because again, like I said previously, we felt like we were going to be fine either way. Obviously, we wanted Lane to stay because he's created, like I said, a lot of wonderful things around our program. But if he left, we knew we were going to be fine too. And if you had told us when he came here 6 years ago that we were going to get 6 years, I think, we've been the longest stop in his coaching career. That probably, I don't know if a lot of people would have guessed he would have been here 6 years. And also that it would be such a hard decision between Ole Miss and two historical blue blood programs like Florida and LSU, who for the first time in a long time, maybe in history, our job was viewed on equal footing as those two jobs, if not better. And especially in this new world of the transfer portal and NIL. So I think we all took a lot of pride that we've, created an atmosphere here where our program and our job is up there as good as anybody's. Obviously, Lane was a big part of that. But yes, to your point, at the end, it wasn't, hey, is he going to stay or is he going to go? It's just, let's make a decision and let's have clarity, because again, our players were left in limbo, our fans were left in limbo, and the not knowing was the biggest challenge for everybody. And the fact that Lane publicly let it play out on social media, and the comment about the Citadel crowd after the Florida game was a shot at our fans, which was unnecessary. And I think just, if he hadn't been so public about the trolling on all sides of this, I've never really seen one guy at one point or another during the last month turn 3 fan bases against him. But he successfully did it. And, again, I think that was the biggest, disagreement and problem I had with it, was just, letting this indecision play out publicly like it did.
Jimmy Sexton is the GOAT of this space, right, of coach representation. You know him, you worked with him. Could you see his fingerprints throughout of that representation, even when you turn on ESPN and watch what Nick Saban and Kirk Herbstreit are saying about him needing to be allowed to continue to coach at Ole Miss?
Yeah, look, I mean, Jimmy's a force of nature. I mean, Jimmy, when I worked for him, the college and pro football world revolved around that office from Thanksgiving to Easter, and it was everybody from GMs to NFL owners to ADs to school presidents and coaches. And, Jimmy's got a reputation for being very influential, and rightly so, because he's because of the career and who he's represented. And I think, I think too, at one point, Jimmy probably was kind of over the whole saga and the circus, and I think at some point he probably was like, hey man, we got to make a decision on this, because, we're going to create some unhealthy relationships and leave some lasting damage. And I think that's where, if Lane had chosen to come back, that was also my worry too, is would we be able to get over some of that damage that had been created from a trust standpoint and relationship standpoint that had been built up over the 6 years. And I think Jimmy was probably concerned about that at the end, but look, Jimmy has his pulse on a lot of things. CAA has their pulse on a lot of things. And yeah, was there some of that, some of those talking points that were permeating through the college football circles? Absolutely. And I think that's really what probably drove our fans absolutely nuts and was really tough for us to manage on this side of it. Absolutely it was. But again, I don't want to put that all on Jimmy. I think that ultimately he was probably just as ready to put this thing to bed as we all were.
Walker, Chad, I know maybe no one as passionate about Ole Miss football and Ole Miss athletics than you. You know the history of football very well there. I read where your favorite game was back in '95, like the Motor City Bowl or something against, I forgot who it was, a Randy Moss, I think it was. Have you considered what this run could be and what it could mean? A couple runs, a couple rematch against Tulane, rematch against Georgia, and then to have this play into it and to have Golding take over with you. I mean, you're in the facility right now. It could be incredible.
Yeah, look, that's that's kind of the question I've been thinking about the last few days. Now that we've kind of gotten clarity, we've moved on, and we've reset ourselves, and again, gotten these players are out there right now on the practice field, preparing for the Tulane game next weekend. And again, I think this is the opportunity for our fans to enjoy the fruits of everybody's labor. And in today's world of roster building, our fans feel a very inherent part of this program. They have contributed mightily financially and other support. And so, anytime that you have to build a roster and this manage, you got to show proof of concept. And I think being 11-1 and being the 6th seed, making our first college football appearance when everybody thought last year was boom or bust. I think that's the other thing too, is, the way we built last year's roster, and we had a great roster last year, but we fell short of it. I think everybody thought last year was boom or bust. And if the 2014 can't make it, and it was the flash in the pan, it was our one shot, and, little Ole Miss goes away. And I think being able to get over the disappointment of not making it last year and then making it this year and having even a better season after we had to rebuild after losing all those great players, I think 8 or 9 draft picks off that team. I think that gives myself and others a lot of satisfaction. And I think we're just, we're all very hopeful that we can make a run here for these players and they can experience all the hard work and the dedication they've put in. And to your question, I've got a lot of wonderful memories as a player, as a supporter, as a coach, as an administrator here. I'm hopeful that this next month can maybe replace some of those, and we can make a magical run here and harness this atmosphere that we've been able to recreate over the last 10 days and put these players in a great spot.
Then I'll put on the end of that, 32-5 or something over the last 3 years. I don't
It's
know.
not bad. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, you're crushing it. Hey, thank you for the perspective and the time. I know you're busy. Great insight with this.
Well, look, I appreciate coming on. You guys have a great show, and appreciate the platform to spread the good word about Ole Miss football. And always great seeing you guys.
Yeah,
Get over to Oxford, come see us.
Hey, I
Can't
would
wait.
love to.
Yeah, we need to do that.
We'd love to. We got to hit the
Come on.
ground.
Hey, there's a pretty big game coming up that maybe we should check out. Biggest
Come on
sporting
over.
event
You're
in the
always
history
welcome.
of the state of Mississippi. I don't think that's overstated when you say that.
Hosting college football playoff game.
Thanks, Walker.
You bet, guys. Hotty toddy.
Yeah, there he is. Walker Jones has been our guest. Great chat there with him, and appreciate the candor.
Looks like we're headed to the Grove, huh?
Let's go. Let's go. Let's take it on. Hey, so we have prize picks each week. Chad and I, we're getting victories. Flex plays.
I'm all the way back, baby. I'm back.
Yeah, prize picks. It's good to be right. Here's our picks for the week. Christian McCaffrey. I'm taking McCaffrey. If you notice this is a Titans-49ers matchup.
Mm-hmm.
McCaffrey, more than 3.5 receptions. He's going to get at least 4 catches, right? George Kittle, more than 3.5 receptions. And Gunnar Helm, more than 1.5. Let's go. Let's get a win here. It's just 2 times pay, double your money, and take a victory.
Hutton, I'm going to ride the horse until it bucks me.
Let's go.
And I'm going to keep on doing it. It's all kicker all the time here, baby. Here we go. I won last week. Jake Bates, Chad Ryland, Young Ho Koo,
Okay.
Andre Smith, and Nick Folk will all hit a field goal on Sunday. This weekend's games. If they all do that, it's a big payoff. That's what we're going for. All those guys will hit one field goal at
Chad,
least.
I'm always nervous saying Nick Folk. I have to say,
Folk.
yes.
Yeah.
Download the app today. You can join us. Use the code HOTMIC to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. It's code HOTMIC. HOTMSE. Get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to OutKick Hot Mic.
Daily content and more at OutKick Hot Mic on YouTube.